As Ivo Simmons is off in the gravel, and he is now sitting in 10th position, is Ivo Simmons. That is a shame, because he'd raised himself up into 6th, and that's put Taubate into 6th, Clark to 7, Ross to 8, Johnson to 9, Vinari to 10, Simmons to 11, and that has put him just ahead of Gregory de Grief, who fancies another position. De Grief currently running in 12th now. Back to the lead battle for 2nd and 3rd position. Simeon there looking a little bit ragged in the corner, as James Johnson, I think, has just overtaken Kevin Clark. Johnson's just overtaken Clark for 8th and 9th position, is having a go at Lee Ross. But we'll stick with this battle for 2nd and 3rd position, because this is the most important. Simeon and Buitendijk. Buitendijk there, that's an interesting way up the Konica corner. And whoops-a-daisy for him, that's dropped him back a little bit. So with that in mind, let's jump back to the battle between 7th and 8th position, Lee Ross and James Johnson. And James Johnson now taking an interesting line into turn 2, around the Coca-Cola, under the bridge, into drift shaft, and trying to go down the outside there. That's an interesting move, and he'll do well. Lee Ross there, hanging him out to dry and leaving him not enough room to keep that corner going. And Johnson thinking better of that time. Kevin Clark keeping a watching brief. Clark initially a lot faster and a lot further up the order than these, but made his own mistake and dropped behind them both, and is now hoping that these two will now take each other off, and that will end there. Will give Clark back 7th position. I'm quite sure Taubate must think that his Christmases have come at once and suddenly in 6th. But let's have a nose at Johnson and Ross down into the final 4. Adam Shaw has crashed out of the race from 13th position and has just retired on lap 26 of 39, so that's a shame for him. And Johnson not really having a nose at Lee Ross this time by. But Lee Ross there getting it completely wrong into turn 1. Johnson dive bombs through into 2. And that was a great move there by James Johnson, seeing that Lee Ross had made a driver error all by himself, obviously under pressure, and good night Vienna for him. So let's jump back to the battle for 2nd and 3rd position between Mike Simeon and Ben Buitendijk. And Buitendijk was half a second behind as they crossed over the line to start lap 28 of 39. And these two... Mike Simeon's off! Simeon is off, and Buitendijk takes 2nd position. Simeon off on his own, obviously looking in his rear mirrors. People have said that turn 1 is an absolute yacht of a corner, and Mike Simeon proving it wrong there. And fantastic car control, not to just completely spin it out and into the barriers like we saw some other drivers do throughout the race. And that is a dreadful shame there by Simeon, but that has allowed Buitendijk to move into 2nd. Simeon now down to 3rd. However, he's still got a decent points advantage and position advantage over Gregory de Grief anyway. However, Ben Crooks is the silent man. He's got 5 seconds now over Ben Buitendijk, which is a good distance enough for now. I want to see if Buitendijk fancies to try and get that gap down. I don't see Ben actually sitting there and saying, I'll settle for 2nd. He's just not the kind of guy, and immediately yoinks a 10th of 2nd off, but I don't think he's got enough time to go in. Let's do a rundown of the order then, just to say hello to everybody as we go through. Ben Crooks currently leads on lap 29 of 39, just 10 to go. No one is pitting either, so everyone obviously deciding to just tank it up and go for it. Ben Buitendijk, 2nd position. Mike Simeon, after that mistake, is 3rd, and he's now 2 seconds behind Ben, and we'll see what he can do. 18 seconds off the pace, but in 4th position and doing a fantastic job is Gary Lennon. Hannu Carasola is a further 7 seconds back in 5th position. Has actually been on a bit of a charge, actually, and has been closing down Gary, but not at quick enough pace, I don't think. Tony Taubate is in 6th position in what has been actually one of the races of the race for him. James Johnson is now in 7th position. He has passed Lee Ross, who is now down to 8th, but those two are not exactly too far apart from each other, and Johnson is basically dragging Ross along with him. Kevin Clark is now sitting in 9th position, and has lost the chance of 6 currently at the moment for a mistake. Jari Vinari looking for a top 10 though, and he'll be delighted with that if that stays going on the same. Ivo Simmons had 6th position and threw it away with a mistake and a quick beach hut villa party in the gravel just a few laps previous. He's currently sitting in 11th. Then 1 lap down is Gregory de Grief. He's just been lapped there by Ben Crooks, but if he can just follow the pace and keep going round, Ivo Simmons is just a couple of seconds up the road, so 11th position could still be Gregory's quite easily. Martin Bolgin is currently sitting 13. Ryan Callan is right behind him in 14, and Bolgin's just gone off in 13, and Ryan Callan takes 13th position away from him. Candy from a little bubba. Ryan Callan there desperately trying a recovery drive after several mistakes, and Bolgin there off the road again, but that was more to let a lapsed driver through. Sylvian Meerlord 2 laps down in 15th position, and our last runner currently is our last runner is Rich Tranter, 4 laps down in 16th position. It's just not been his day, and but at least he's still going, and if he keeps on going there may well be points in the bag for him. Indeed. Simeon is unable to really bend into Betendijk's gap, which has stayed, well, it's actually stayed at 2 seconds, and Betendijk is falling away from Crooks, and Crooks has had to deal with traffic. So that's going to be quite interesting to see what happens. Best battle probably on track at the moment is going to be what happens to Ivo Simmons when he gets lapped by Ben Crooks, because Grief is right behind. And let's see what happens. Ivo Simmons currently running in 11th. That is Ben Crooks behind, who is about to lap him. Simmons there not being particularly jumpy out of the way. He's waiting for the main straight. Obviously quite cautious that the Grief is behind, and Simmons not exactly letting Crooks pass quite so quickly. It's a bit, well, it's not a bit more like it actually. I wonder if he thinks that he's actually in a battle for position. No, Simmons there running quite wide in that corner, and that's a good way of letting Crooks through without letting de Grief catch up too close. So, but that is a battle that is still to be resolved. What else have we got going on track? James Johnson and Lee Ross are still relatively close. Oh, and Ryan Callan has crashed out. Oh no, fancy getting all that way to lap 30 or 39 and then binning it. So that is going to push Sylvian Meerlord into 14th and Rich Tranter, providing they get round, into 15th. And that's a shame, as Ivo Simmons runs off in 11th position and Gregory de Grief takes the place away. Gregory de Grief will be absolutely kicking himself for that turn 1 discretion. And because he's had the pace for at least 4th. Aha! Well, I've been told by my little pit lane sleuth as Tony Talbot's just gone off the road in 6th position, but he's back going again now. Obviously tyre wear becoming an issue in these last 6 laps. Gregory de Grief and Ivo Simmons are teammates, so maybe a little bit of Ferrari Austria 2002 tactics going on. But I shall leave that for you to decide. But thank you very much, my pit lane sleuth, for giving me the dibs on that one. So, coming around for the last few laps now, Ben Crooks has, well, we've barely seen much of him this race because everyone else has been busy battling each other, and Ben Crooks has just been managing the gap as it's gone. He's obviously been trying very hard because his lap times have there's kind of a second spread between them all, so he's obviously been trying very hard throughout the race. To try and make sure that he's constantly got a certain gap ahead of the person behind him. Betendijk is 5 seconds behind. Mike Simeon is now 9 seconds behind, so Simeon maybe now just settling for 3rd position. Betendijk is going quite heavy track at the moment as well. So with Ivo Simmons and Gregory de Grief, so that gap is only going to increase. Gary Lennon is still being reeled in by Henry Carasola, who's just had a rough exit out of turn 2, but Carasola's had an awful exit out of turn 2. I think he's been playing Little Miss Gravel, and yes, he has. Henry Carasola went off, but only just into the gravel and managed to get himself going. He's lost about 8 seconds, but he's still got another 8 seconds over Tony Talbot. So a lucky save there by Henry Carasola, currently running 5th position, and I'm sure he doesn't want to throw that away with just 5 coming up now for 4 laps to go. Talbot is 6, James Johnson is 7. He's now pulled away 4 seconds over Lee Ross, the battle for 7th and 8th. Kevin Clark's made another error somewhere because he's now a minute off the pace in 9th position, and he's got 5 seconds over Jari Vinari for 10. So Clark can't afford to make any more mistakes if he wants to hold on to that 9th position. 1 lap down is Gregory Griefs, thinking, please, Kevin Clark, make another error. Leo Simmons is 12, Martin Bolgin is 13, also a lap down. 2 laps down is Sylvian Meerlord, and well done to Rich Tranter for being 4 laps down, but still going and plodding round in 15th position. And wow, just coming in for the closing couple of laps now. What a fantastic race it's been. Dominated by the first corner problems that would besieged Gregory de Grief, our pole sitter, who looked like he had, Martin Bolgin in 13th position is just taking a quick trip across the gravel. He'll be quite happy to make it home this race after having a great battle at Surfers Paradise with his teammate and then disconnecting in the middle of it. So he'll be grateful for a finishy poos. But the race was really set. Well, the tone for it was set when Gregory de Grief ran off wide with James Johnson, the 2 guys on the front of the grid, in turn 1. That allowed Ben Crooks to leap forward into 3rd position as Gary Lennon, who'd had a great start, had to avoid them all. Crooks then took the lead, held it off from Mike Simeon. Butendyke eventually got into 3rd when Ryan Callan made a mistake and dropped down the order and subsequently has retired. That then left Butendyke to battle with Simeon for 2nd. Simeon then makes a mistake in that dreaded turn 1, running onto the curves, doing a 90-degree spin down to turn 2 in quite epic fashion, I have to say. Butendyke took 2nd, but has been unable to give any answers to Ben Crooks at all, who has led from turn 3 of lap 1 and just hasn't looked back since. Ben Crooks definitely contender for driver of the day, along with Tony Talbot for an excellent recovery drive up the order to grab 6th, and James Johnson for overtaker and switcheroo of the race. Collateral damage award I think goes to Ryan Callan for having more offs than everyone else, and hard charger award goes to Rich Tranter for gritting his teeth and soldiering on, and it's going to pay off because he's in points paying position, obviously, with 15th place. Doesn't matter how many laps down you are, if you finish and you grab a nice position like that, you shall be rewarded. It's lap 37 now of 39, and Ben Crooks majestically continuing on round. Almost all the battles now are pretty much petered out. The only one potentially left, although Gregory de Grief isn't quite close enough, is he's reeling in Jari Vinari quite quickly, but just not quick enough to be able to do it, as Ben Crooks has started his final lap of the Grand Prix. So let's follow our race lead around on his last lap, because we've barely seen much of him all race. Now, if this is a drive that is going to pop you into contention for a championship, I think we better say hello and wave our hands to shake our hands at Ben Crooks and say welcome to the championship challenge, my friend, because this has been an absolute championship contending drive from Ben Crooks. Straight away kept his head when everyone else was going off and has led from the front and looked very comfortable in doing so as well, as he puts a lap on Martin Bolgin. And here he comes round to the flip-flop. Bouncy curve 1, bouncy curve 2, into the final corner, round to across the line, and Ben Crooks is our winner here. He flashes his lights, he's a happy bunny. Ben Crooks wins at Oran Park for Race Department's V8 series.